welcome back everyone to the video series dedication show on Paramount Plus that has reached its final countdown. That's right, we're talking about The Challenge All-Stars Season 4, Episode 11. In this episode, we actually reached the final. The finalists are locked in, but before we can get to the finals, we have another challenge for the contestants to do to lock in those finalists and stars, and people need to be purged. But before we can get to that, let's start off where last episode left off, and that was Steve winning his third elimination of the season, stealing Adam's star and handing it over to Ace. And coming back to the challenge house, Cara, Ace, and Steve are all hanging out, talking, congratulating Steve. It's actually quite interesting because Steve was in the first elimination of the season, and pretty much we see him win the last elimination of the season. All three of Cara, Steve, and Ace are all currently star holders, and they are ecstatic to have stars this late in the game, but somebody who is not quite happy is Adam. He's talking to Ryan about feeling betrayed about what Steve did, and now Adam needs to get a star this late in the game, but he doesn't want just anybody's star or any star out there. No, he wants Steve's star. At this point, Adam wants revenge more than he wants to win. Now, the house is quite interesting at this point of the game because there's only 12 people left in the game. It's split right down the middle between star holders and non-star holders. The star holders are waiting and hoping for TJ to come to the house and announce that you have made the final. We hear from Leroy that he does not want to hear TJ adding any more stars because he just wants to get to the final. A 1 in 6 chance to win the grand prize and the title of challenge champion is much better odds than going up against 8 people. Whereas the non-star holders, will there be an opportunity to get a star? Will there be more stars? Will we just be purged out? I mean, pretty much everybody's feeling a little bit of pressure. That is, except if you're Laurel, who at this point is too preoccupied on how Nicole would pick her up at a pretend coffee shop. But then the challenge production tells everybody to don their challenge gear, head down to meet up with TJ by what looks to be a big lake, where he wastes no time in telling the 6 star holders that they have indeed made the final. And they are so happy. Everybody's jumping up and down, and he tells them that not only are you in the final, but you get the day off and get to go hang out at my RV/Winnebago, have some snacks, play some games, and watch the show as the other 6 contestants will be playing in the final challenge of the season to try to win 2 stars and 2 tickets to the final. The challenge that the contestants will be playing in is called Starborn. It's a rather complex daily challenge that will have the contestants starting deep within the forest. Once CJ blows the horn, they'll be running quite a distance to untangle their raft from a tree, then paddle out to a floating star to retrieve a key, and then paddle even farther to get to a box that is filled with like golden slop. And the players will have to dig through to try to find a star. The first man and woman to find their star will win stars. This daily challenge looks to be like sort of a mini final or a mini final. Now at the starting line, right before TJ blows the horn, this is when Flora stops everything and says, look, I'm not feeling it. I got this far into the game, but I think I'm gonna have to bow out, and she quits. Flora on the season did not win a daily challenge, did not win an elimination, but unlike a lot of other contestants that had only done 1 season or haven't been on the challenge in like a lot of seasons or a lot of years, she wasn't targeted at all, which is very impressive, and you have to give credit to how good of a social game she played throughout the season. But then again, wasn't really given too much during the whole show. I will say that it was nice to see Flora. Thanks for playing. And now we can get on to the actual Starborn daily challenge. TJ blows the horn and everybody takes off. Now, with a foot race, of course, Derek outruns everybody to get to the raft first. Derek is the first one to get into the water, but Laurel is able to quickly surpass him, and Adam is right behind them. Basically, this is how the daily challenge is gonna go for the rest of the time, as we see Ryan and Avery really fall behind during this raft portion. Avery is going around in circles, she can't get the hang of it, and really she had to play perfectly to keep up with Laurel, who was absolutely dominating this thing from like the very beginning. Derek was doing a fantastic job, but it was a two-person race with Adam breathing down Derek's neck the entire time. Laurel was first to get to the floating star. Derek was right behind her, and Adam was right behind Derek. They all retrieved their keys roughly around the same time. They all left the floating star at roughly the same time. Laurel was first to get to her box and dip into her slop. Derek was second. Adam jumped in, but it was too late because those few seconds that Adam was behind Derek made all the difference, because Derek was able to jump into his box, dump a whole bunch of slop, and find his star rather quickly. Laura was able to find her star and lock in her spot into the final as well. So Adam, Avery, and Ryan were all purged from this game. They'll be taking the same Uber with Flora to the airport as the finalists of Ace, Cara, Derek, Laurel, Leroy, Nicole, Steve, and Veronica are going to the final. And coming back to the challenge house, they have a lovely spread of hummus and charcuterie boards, champagne, and letters from home. But unlike season 39, we do not get a portion of everybody reading their letters from home. And from there, the contestants, all they have to do is wait. Now we do see everybody just kind of getting ready, packing up their bags, playing some cards, hanging out, and TJ pulls up in an RV/Winnebago, telling everybody, like, get dressed, meet me in the RV. The final starts now. And this sets up one of my favorite sequences of not just All-Stars, but I think in the challenge in general. I love TJ driving this Winnebago filled with all the finalists to the actual final. This is so much fun. I love how everybody is just playing into the road trip vibe of, like, Leroy asking, like, are we there yet, TJ? People asking about snacks, making references to National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Cara tattling on Laurel for poking her, and TJ saying, Laurel, stop poking your sister. It's incredible. This is the kind of stuff that you don't get on the main flagship show. I'm worried with the news of who's rumored to be on All-Stars 5 and the rumors of how production is viewing All-Stars 5 and if we will get scenes like this in the future. It looks like it's kind of up in the air if we're going to get that or not. So all I'm going to say is that I love this sequence and I am going to not take this for granted. This was a lot of fun. Right before we're going to get into very serious territory of the final. Which, speaking of the final, TJ pulls up to, like, this abandoned warehouse to get out in the parking lot, and TJ says, this is the final. We're going to be doing tasks where some of the tasks will be for advantages and some of the tasks will be for eliminations. That multiple people over the course of the final will be eliminated. And he says specifically that by sunrise, the field will be cut in half. So we're starting with 8 players and only 4 players will remain and will be going on to the final portion of the final. And to me, that is super interesting. Mainly the finals have been like giant races with checkpoints and tasks in between. The first portion of this final, they are just hanging around this warehouse, going into different rooms and doing different tasks, which I'm very excited. This is different, this is new, and the 2 tasks that we get to see early on in this final are actually very interesting. To me, I feel like this could even out the playing field, where I think anybody could be able to survive this portion of the final and move on to the second portion, which the second portion could be an endurance-based challenge, but we don't know what the second portion is going to look like, so let's just go over what we see in the final half of this episode. The first checkpoint is for an advantage. The first checkpoint is called Shooting Star. Each player will be strapped to the top of a car. A stunt driver will be driving them through a course where they're trying to shoot star targets. Each target is worth 1 point, except for a secret hidden star, which is worth 2 points. The player with the most amount of points at the end of this checkpoint will get an advantage into the second checkpoint, which is an elimination checkpoint. This checkpoint is awesome. It's so much fun. It reminds me of Turning Agents from season 37, but not as boring because they're actually going through a course. It's so dynamic. The camera angles are incredible. The only bad thing I could find with this first checkpoint is that they don't show everybody's scores. I mean, how hard is it to make a graphic and put it up for like a couple of seconds? I guess that's just extra time and we should just take TJ's word for it, but what's the harm in like just showing it? You know, it's a little bit more transparency. and it makes me feel good. And also, I just love stats on all the players. Another thing that I love about this final, and I think is perfect for this final, is that everybody is just hanging out away from the actual challenge. Nobody can just watch somebody do the challenge. So when Leroy, who's the first one up, is doing his course, they can't see what's going on. All they can hear is like the cart going. I love it. I love that nobody can see what's going on, and it greatly helps in the second checkpoint. But before we can get to the second checkpoint, let's just go over who gets the advantage going into the second checkpoint. Apparently, it comes down to Laurel and Leroy, who both crush it and are the top 2 performers of this first checkpoint, but Leroy comes out on top, gets the advantage into the second checkpoint called Electric Star. In Electric Star, all the players will be going into a room with TJ. There's this giant metal star where they have a ring on a stick, and you have to traverse the entire star. The catch is that the giant metal star is live with electricity, and if the metal ring that you're holding touches the star, you will be zapped. Again, I like this challenge. It's interesting. I think the way that they film it and edit it makes it seem very alluring, and it flips everything upside down that we know about challenges, because for so long, the strategy is if you can go later in the round, it helps you the most in challenges, because the first couple of people up are the guinea pigs, and they normally do it wrong, and everybody can kind of figure it out by the time you get to the end. But in this specific challenge, I think it's detrimental if you go later on in the round. Again, like I said, everybody is away from the person who is doing the challenge, so they have no idea what's going on or how it looks until they're in the room with TJ doing the actual challenge. But then you could do mind games with this Electric Star challenge, because Leroy, who's the first one up again, and had an advantage where he starts a quarter way through the star instead of starting at the very beginning. He finishes this checkpoint. He didn't touch the edges. So then right before he gets out of the room, he just starts yelling to kind of get into the minds of everybody. And what also sells it is that Nicole, who is very nervous about being shocked, does get shocked, and she is screaming, and it's actually real. And she comes out and she's like looking at Laurel and kind of crying in her arm because it was too painful. Now, Nicole says that it was all for show, but this all plays into the mental mind game to where by the end of the challenge, when we have Derek and Laurel going, they are taking their time not to touch any of the star because of how people handled or what they heard from everybody else who already went. And it ends up that they are on the bottom. They are the 2 worst performers and possibly going to get purged from this final. Something else that plays into this is that Derek did say that, I think he said last year he got shocked and it dislocated his jaw. So going into this second checkpoint, he was already really, really nervous. I have to give a shout out to Ace, where everybody else was trying to be very slow and methodical about their movements. Ace was just like, he just brute forced his way, just getting zapped at every single moment. And it was incredible to watch, but also bravo. You know, if you can do it, why not? Veronica also did incredibly well to where she didn't touch the sides very often, but even if she did, she acted like nothing happened. I also love Steve because he did it really well until halfway, and then he got zapped once and then started brute forcing it like Ace did, and he was just like zapping himself. This final couldn't have started out any better in my opinion. And then of course we leave off on a cliffhanger where TJ doesn't tell us who will get purged between Laurel and Derek until the start of next episode. This was one of the best episodes of the season. Even though I'm not a huge fan of adding more stars this late into the game, I thought Laurel and Derek, who have done a great job this entire season, deserve to make it to the final, especially after dominating the Starborn Daily Challenge. And then this final is so different than what we've seen in prior seasons or in recent seasons. And I just love how they're starting it off, how they're trying to keep it fair and balanced for everybody. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen in next week's episode. But that is it for this review and recap. What'd you think about this episode? Let me know down in the comments section below. What'd you think about the Starborn Daily Challenge? What'd you think about Flora quitting? Were you upset to see Adam, Avery, and Ryan be purged? What'd you think about Derek and Laurel winning themselves into the final at the very last minute? And what do you think about the setup for this final? Did you like either of the two checkpoints? How are you liking the final so far? And who are you rooting for as we move on to the final episode of this season? Let me know anything and everything down in the comment section below. I want to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much for watching. I now want to give a special shout out thank you to everyone who supports me over at patreon.com/angelcakevids. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thank you to everyone who's watching this video up to this point. I'll be back really soon with more Challenge All-Stars 4 content, more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.